Everyone, this video is a continuation of our exploration on confidence interval. But this time, on this part 2 of our video, we're going to compute the length of the confidence interval when the population standard deviation is known or is given on a word problem. In this video, you will learn to apply the formula in determining the margin of error when the population standard deviation is known, and as well as to compute for the length of the confidence interval when the population standard deviation is known. On the previous video, we already learned interval estimate, which is a range of values of a population parameter. Its lower limit is equal to mean minus the margin of error, while the upper limit is equal to mean plus the margin of error. For example, if our mean is 65 kilograms and our margin of error is equal to 3.5 kilograms, therefore, our lower limit is equal to mean minus the margin of error, which is 65 kilograms minus 3.5 kilograms is equal to 61.5 kilograms. On the other hand, our upper limit is equal to margin of error plus the mean. So that is 65 kilograms plus 3.5 kilograms. Therefore, our upper limit will be 68.5 kilograms. To conclude, our interval estimate for the population parameter is from 61.5 kilogram to our upper limit 68.5 kilogram. Yan. So, napaka-importante that you understood the interval estimate for this lesson, because in this lesson, we will focus on computing the margin of error. We're going to compute the confidence interval when the population standard deviation is known. And the formula to be used for the margin of error is error is equal to z alpha over 2, which is the z value, multiply to the population standard deviation divided by the square root of n, which is the sample size. If that is the formula for the margin of error, there will be a minimal revision. Dadagdagan natin ng step yung ating previous discussion on the previous video, which is we're going to compute for the margin of error. This formula is only applicable again when the population standard deviation is known. So, we'll have this final formula for the confidence interval. But of course, very overwhelming ang formula na to. Sobrang haba. So, we will follow some steps. Number 1, when you are confronted with a word problem, you have to write the given. Step 2, you will compute for the margin of error using the formula. And then afterwards, if you have the margin of error, you can now apply what you've learned on the previous video, which is to compute for the upper and the lower limit of the confidence interval, so that you will be able to determine the length of the confidence interval. Let's have here an example. The population of Sulu hornbill is one of the endangered bird species in the Philippines, has a standard deviation of 40. Compute for the length of the confidence interval for 90% confidence level having a sample size of 150 and a sample mean of 65. In this problem, if we're going to write down the given, Our subject is the population of Sulu hornbill. And it says that it has a standard deviation of 40. So, since ang subject natin ay buong populasyon ng hornbill, so itong standard deviation natin na 40 will be the population standard deviation. Kasi galing siya sa measure of the whole population. So, our population standard deviation will be 40. And then we have also the 90% confidence level. So we have our confidence level, which is 90%. And then sample size of 150. And a sample mean of 65. So our point estimate is sample mean, which is 65. So very clear that in this problem, the population standard deviation is known. So ito yung focus natin. Kailangan makikita sa problem that the population standard deviation is given or can be computed. Step 2, compute for the margin of error. So ito yung bagong formula na ini-introduce sa video na ito. So paano ba natin siya kukumputin? So una, the Z alpha over 2 is the confidence coefficient of the confidence level na 90%. So, dito lang tayo magfo-focus. So, Z alpha over 2, yung gamit yung ating confidence level na 90%. So, paano natin malalaman yung Z alpha over 2? So, gagamitin natin yung T-table. And, naaalala nyo? Ito yung T-table natin na ginagamit. On the lower part of the T-table, there comes the Z distribution. Ayan, the Z. So, kung hanapin nyo lang yung confidence level, ayan yung nasa baba yung confidence level. So, 90% confidence level, that corresponds to 1.645 confidence coefficient. So, yung 1.645 yung gagamitin natin. So, yun yung nadagdag na process, no, sa ating pagko-compute ng margin of error. So, standard deviation from the given is 40 divided by square root of 150. So, pag kinumpute nyo yan, using a calculator, 40 divided by the square root of 150 multiplied to 1.645, the answer is 5.37. Yan. So, syempre, rounded off to the nearest hundreds. So, pag meron na kayong margin of error, yan, madali nang makompute ang ating upper limit at lower limit. So, probably talaga ang ino-introduce ng lesson na to is paano ang gagawin kung ang population standard deviation is known but the margin of error is not yet given. So, tinuturo sa atin yung step 1, pinakamahalaga dyan step 2. Kasi yung step 3 ay application lang din ng previous discussion. So, ang ating lower limit is equal to mean minus the margin of error, which is, ang mean natin dito ay 65 minus 5.37. So, when you use a calculator, 59.63. For the upper limit, we'll have margin of error added to the mean. So, that is 65 plus 5.37. So, that is equal to 70.37. So, yan. So, kung may upper at lower limit na tayo, madali na natin mahulaman ang confidence interval. So, ang confidence interval natin is the lower limit, 59.63. So, yan ang ating confidence interval. Yun yung estimation natin of the parameter. Yan. So, again, ang ating given ay the population standard deviation is known. Yan, nakita natin yan. So, we use this formula. No. Let's now have another example. The average price of 60 Philippine-made shirts is 150 pesos, and the population standard deviation is 55. Find the length of the confidence interval of the true average of the shirts using a 95% confidence level. So kung i-write down natin yung mga given, that 60 refers to the number of t-shirts. So that therefore that is our sample size. So we have 60 t-shirts. And then 150 is the average price. No, the average price is 150 pesos. That's our sample mean, which is 150 pesos. In the population standard deviation, clearly stated ang ating population standard deviation, which is 55. So, yan. So, ito yung, again, the population standard deviation is known. So, yung formula na yun yung gagamitin natin. And the confidence level is 95%. So, compute for the margin of error. So, yan. So, again, yung Z alpha over 2 natin, nakadepende yan sa ating confidence level. So, kung 95% ang confidence level natin and the population standard deviation is known, 95% is 1.96. Yan. So, multiply again to population standard deviation over square root of sample size 60. The answer is 13.92. When you round it off to the nearest 100. So, dahil meron na tayong margin of error, we can compute for the lower limit, which is equal to mean minus the margin of error. Our mean is 150 pesos, and the margin of error is 13.92. So, therefore, we'll obtain 136.08. So that's our lower limit. For the upper limit, we'll have the mean plus the error, which is equal to 150 plus 13.92. So, ibig sabihin yan ay 163.92. So, to identify the confidence interval, syempre, lower limit natin, 136 pesos and 8 centavos, balik natin yung units, up to 163 pesos and 92 centavos. So, yan yung ating range of the true mean. Yan. So, I hope malinaw sa atin, no? Again, this part 2 of the lesson is specifically on computing the margin of error when the population standard deviation is known. Okay? So, you'll use this formula. On the third video, that's a continuation, the population standard deviation is not known. No? So, we only have the sample standard deviation. So, that's another case. So, if you confronted with identifying the confidence interval, you have to identify what standard deviation is given. Kung population ba or sample. So, in case population, this video will help you. For the assessment part, here are 3 questions or 3 word problems that you may answer. Take a pause and screenshot. And that ends the second part of exploration on confidence interval. Goodbye, everyone.